Indiana's 8th Congressional District has always been a district of movement of river trade in Evansville, movement of stone from Jasper's quarries, movement of students through Terre Haute's campuses, movement of defense technology through the Crane region. But today, many families across this district, from Vincennes to Spencer, from Bloomfield to Brazil, from French Lick to Lagodi, are asking harder questions. Is this opportunity still moving forward, or are we standing still? Because in the 8th district, politics isn't abstract. It's whether about a hospital stays open, whether a plant expands or closes, whether a family can build a life without leaving Southern Indiana behind. Tonight's guest believes this district deserves leadership rooted in accountability and action. Our guest tonight is Tabitha Zeigler, a Democratic candidate for Indiana's 8th Congressional District. Many Hoosiers may already know Tabitha as the host of the podcast Staring Down the Storm, a show focused on real conversations about autism, advocacy, and systems that shape our lives. Through interviews with families, educators, and experts across the country, she's highlighted the resilience, frustration, and hope with the neurodivergent community. She is also a founding member of Progressive Indiana Network, working to connect organizers and citizens across the state who believe accountability and public engagement still matter. Tabitha is now stepping from advocacy and storytelling into campaign for Congress, seeking to represent one of Indiana's most politically competitive districts. Tonight, we move beyond familiarity and into responsibility, asking her advocacy experience translates to federal policy and how she would represent the full economic and cultural range of the bloody 8th. Tabitha, welcome to Hold 'em Accountable.
Thanks for having me.
The 8th District includes both manufacturing hubs like Jasper and river cities like Evansville. What's your concrete economic strategy that works across both?
Well, I think, like everything else, we should ask people in those districts. Say, hey, what works, what doesn't? But we should be concerned about what works for your average Hoosier, the people that are actually doing the work, not necessarily the CEOs.
Rural hospital closures are a real concern in parts of this district. What federal action would you prioritize first to stabilize healthcare access?
We just need universal health care, just flat out. Um, I have a perfect example of that type of situation today. I'm from a very rural area. I'm from Covington. Um, I have 3 little kids with autism that luckily for me, I was able to get them into an ABA school. So then I drive my children from Covington to Crawfordsville back and forth every day. I just took my son to Brownsburg for part of his therapy and then back to Crawfordsville. He wasn't feeling well. So then he came back home with me and we had a telehealth visit that we were on again, off again. It was working. It wasn't, because you basically have to take your child, or if you're an adult, everybody's going to the emergency room at this point because you can't even get into the doctor. You're lucky to even get a telehealth appointment. So I think we are so far down the rabbit hole with some of these health policies, and it's all based on greed, right? Like nothing about any of this has anything to do with helping Hoosiers. So like many other things, I think we need to get all of that wealth disparity out of healthcare. This should be a human right. And right now, in this country and in this state, people are suffering. And quite honestly, they don't care who's responsible for it, but it seems very clear to them that it is the uber wealthy that are taking these small medical facilities out of their communities. And we have to stop that.
I was reading, I think it was this morning, about this year's SB1, how it will pretty much destroy Medicaid, Medicare, by putting in so many new restrictions and check marks that you have to go through to even get on the program. And I was reading it from the aspect of someone who deals with people coming out of prison.
Yeah.
And they are able to work within the medical system because there's the presumption that they will get Medicaid or Medicare.
Mm.
And now with SB1, this year's version of SB1, they won't be able to get the medical care they need coming out of prison, which, if you look at the first 90 days, are the most important 90 days coming out of prison. That way there's no recidivism going back into jail. And I don't think that they are really paying attention to what they are actually doing.
I think it's clear that, well, I would disagree with you there. I think they know exactly what they're doing. And currently, it's the haves and the have-nots. And we've seen cycles of this, but this is an extreme cycle of it. And it doesn't matter whether you're a person with a disability, whether you're coming out of prison, maybe you have a pre-existing health condition, maybe you're a disabled veteran, maybe you've got PTSD, maybe you are just in that poor bracket, which is pretty wide now, let's face it, that you're trying to decide which one of you will get health care, which one of you can afford health care. I have a friend of mine that she was just telling me the other day. Her husband changes jobs so frequently that they're not there long enough to get the health care. And her particular medication that she needs would cost, I can't remember if it was $30,000 per month or $30,000 per quarter. And we've got several international examples of how we could do that differently. So then that just proves to the American people that at least follow that track, right? Because if you want to talk to Hoosiers about medical care, I think people are starting to realize, oh, we can have travel health care. How much would it cost me to get a root canal here versus a root canal in Spain? Maybe it would be cheaper, and they're finding that's the case. So we have a big, big problem if your average Hoosier is already thinking, right, so how much would it cost me to buy a plane ticket round trip to Spain to get medical care? And for being supposedly one of the wealthiest nations in the world, we're failing everyone. And quite frankly, I think Hoosiers are in a very hard bracket with that because for so long we've had all these manufacturing jobs leaving Indiana. We can't keep any of our students, right? Because there's a brain drain. It doesn't matter in what. I mean, there are plenty of kids that would like to stay here, but they just can't because they either can't find the job, they can't get the schooling, they can't afford it. I mean, just go through the long list of things that are wrong. And, Indiana's pretty much checking all the boxes on, well, hey, let's see how we can screw over our constituents.
I mean, I'm dealing with that kind of right now because our
Sure.
daughter's 17 years old. She's wanting to be an ultrasound tech. Yeah, there's two really good programs in the state, Ivy Tech and USI, University of Southern Indiana down at Evansville. Two really good programs, but there's better programs in South Carolina or Georgia. And she's thinking, well, I may just want to move to South Carolina or Georgia.
Sure.
The weather's better.
Right.
But I mean, she's wanting to possibly move away from Indiana.
And that's a very normal conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's been the typical conversation for at least 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. I did it when I was 18. I joined the Marines to get away.
Yeah, I did it too. I started at school at USI, then I transferred up to ISU. So I've done both. I've been in different areas of the state, academically as well. I became a flight attendant after school. I was a flight attendant for like 17 years. I was based in Newark, New Jersey. I was based in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Chicago. I bounced all over the place. And then I chose to come back. And had I not had that income at that time, I don't think I would have been able to have that option to come back to Indiana, even though my commute was far, right? Like I would allot myself about 5 hours to drive to Chicago, but still, most people in Indiana, for whatever job that they have, they are already commuting. The gas prices are up. All the utilities are up. I mean, we just have all these predatory policies right now, not to even mention going into the data centers and the windmills and all the rest of it. But how can someone even tell their child right now, stay? You can't. Like, because if you want to make sure that your child does well, more and more Hoosiers are having this conversation and they're saying to their sons and daughters, there's nothing for you here. I want you to have a good life and therefore you have to leave.
Exactly. And yeah, you're talking about gas, but isn't gas like $1.79 in Iowa?
That I'm not sure about, but I just filled up today. And I want to say unleaded where I was like 277, something
Which,
like
I
that.
mean, is great. No, I know you didn't because we're in contact quite a bit. I know you didn't watch the farce the other night with
You know, man, like
Orange Kool-Aid Man, but
there's only
he
so much
flat out
trauma.
said gas is $1.79 in parts of Iowa. I'm like, where the hell? That might be E85. That's not, gasoline.
Hey,
I'll
if
tell
you
you
want to
that.
talk if you want to talk gas, let's talk gas. I remember whenever I got my license, you could get gas for like 99 cents. And I know that sounds crazy. I'm not super, super old. Like, I'll just be 43 this year, right? But even that, I mean, like, people just can't afford anything. And then, we've had conversations before about COVID, right? You had a ton of people that were suffering. That wasn't that long ago. I was also one of these people suffering during COVID. And just to boomerang back to this kind of stuff, like people, I feel like most Americans, but especially Hoosiers, which are tough people, we're gritty people, and we're like, hey, it's fine, we'll figure it out, we'll tough it out. But you can only ask people to cinch their belts so tight, man. I mean, basically, these current legislators, they're asking people to cinch the belt around someone's neck, no longer their waist. And how much are normal Hoosiers supposed to give? Their health care sucks. Like, they have these data centers that are coming in that are going to make their water crappy. And it's not going to be crappy for a little while. It'll be crappy forever. I think a lot of Hoosiers really care about the environment. They care about clean air, clean water, clean soil. They're not rushing to the emergency room all the time. They just want to be able to go to the doctor once in a while. Hell, most grown-ups, they're just like, right, I can't go to the doctor. I don't have time. I'm just trying to get my kids to the doctor. And you can't even get those kids into the doctor. You're having to take those kids to the emergency room. So you're not even doing it for yourself. Like, you're always last. It doesn't matter for what. Eye appointment, dental appointment. Like, basically, Hoosiers have to be dying, literally, before they're going to walk into one of these ER rooms. And then you're not even starting to have that conversation about how much does that cost. And then you're running people away with that too, because they're like, right, because, our legislators have not done that duty either, which other countries have, right? We should already have a law on the books saying people will not lose their homes due to some sort of medical issue. You shouldn't have to lose your freaking house because you fell down the stairs and you broke your leg and, I guess that doctor was not in your network. So that's going to be $200,000. And maybe your house is worth $50,000 because maybe you haven't been able to put a new roof on it, new siding on it, new windows or whatever. Maybe you're, heating that place with your stove. Like, people need to have these type of conversations. And I think the current people that are sitting in office right now, they're so detached from reality because they don't live that life. How could they? How could they speak for the rest of us? This is why you see normal people like me saying, right, enough's enough. Like, I know what this life's about because I'm living it. So then I can actually, tell these other legislators, hey, this is what it's like to live in the 8th District of Indiana. And it doesn't matter if you're from Covington, Terre Haute, Vincennes, Sullivan, or Evansville or Tell City, for example. Like, the normal people are struggling. There are plenty of rich people everywhere, and they're fine, and they will weather the storm fine. But for your normal Hoosiers, we are drowning.
Well, I mean, plus, there's some person that decides to put a helicopter pad right in the middle of their freaking farm just because he can't drive an hour and a half to his office.
I think all of this boils down to, right, we have to decide what we want. We have to decide what we want our future to be. But this isn't even necessarily about us anymore. Like, now we're fighting for our children, our grandchildren, the community's children. We just have to create space now so we can let these kids grow up and have a chance. And we're recognizing, wow, this is extreme. And I mean, I can't tell you how many Hoosiers that I've spoken to that are not super wealthy, but are already having these conversations, not just moving out of state, moving out of country for a
Mhm.
wide variety of reasons. It might be healthcare. Maybe you're part of the trans community. Maybe you're part of the LGBTQ plus community. Hell, maybe you're just a veteran and you're like, I'm anti-war. I'm not doing it again. And I'm not sending my kid. And if you're going to start the draft again, I'll be an immigrant and I'll move to Canada or I'll move to Portugal or Spain or whatever because I just want my kids to have a chance. I just want them to have a better life than I do. And that's what every parent's goal is, right? But we have these legislators sitting in office right now just filling their pockets and they don't give a damn about what happens to Hoosiers.
I mean, to be honest, we've looked at Portugal. We've
I'm speaking from experience, man.
Yeah,
I've looked too.
I mean, my family's looked at Portugal. We've
hmm
looked at Spain.
Because the
Um,
healthcare is good. And the
yeah,
reason the
and
healthcare is good is because of the policies they put in place to take care of their people.
well, that and I mean, living's a little bit cheaper there.
It is.
Um,
It
I
is.
mean, could get a nice house for 200,000
Uh-huh.
US dollars.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And that's a really nice house.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's credit, no credit reports.
Mhm.
You don't have a credit number in Europe. To me, that's always been kind of weird that we base everything on you have to be in debt to be able to take more debt out,
Uh-huh.
which is a weird way to put
Yeah.
it.
This system is eating people. We are actively eating Hoosiers at this point. You know, it's crazy to me. I mean, I'm sort of at that point where I'm opting out of the system. And maybe that is because I've traveled internationally and I'm trying to share that information with people. Hell, I could have very easily fled the coop, right? And I'll be completely honest with you. The reason that I didn't was because I was like, I cannot leave these people behind. I know my family's going to stay. I know what these people are up to. I know at the end of the day, these outside sources or these other people right now that are claiming to have, 7 generations of Hoosier blood in them that don't give a damn about Hoosiers, right? Like, all these people are looking at Indiana and they're like, right, we've got about 63% of farmland, and these farmers are hurting, and most of them are probably going to lose their farms. And how many solar farms could we put in this place? How
Mhm.
many wind farms could we put here? How many data centers could we put here? Because clearly, the governor's all about the money. He's going to roll on these people. Most of the legislature in Indianapolis, they're going to roll. It doesn't matter whether they're Democrat or Republican. They're all filling their pockets. I mean, hell, the same money's rolling on both sides. That's why you see so many progressives getting in the race because they're like, I have had enough. I have seen enough. There is so much greed. The greed is just the depravities on a whole other level. How can you possibly tell these normal people, I care about you? I'm going to take care of you, right? Whenever they've probably got a tooth that they need a root canal in that they're suffering with, and they're just hanging on and they're popping pills or whatever just to get through the day, go to work or whatever. I mean, there are just so many normal Hoosier scenarios that I just don't know how these legislators sleep at night, honestly. Like how do you go home? Some of these people, depending upon what they make, but especially in Congress, right? Most people don't even know what people make in Congress.
Mhm.
And these people are the same ones that are telling people, cinch that belt up. You can do it tighter. You can give more. But they've got good health care for them and their families. They're finding all of this extra money to put in their pockets. How much of that money have they contributed to their community, like wherever they're from? What kind of nonprofits are they running? How are they giving back to their communities? And the answer is they're not, because they don't give a shit. And we need to find people that give a shit. And this is why I'm running.
See, I think one of the big issues right now that people aren't seeing is a normal every congressperson makes the
Uh-huh.
same amount of money base pay.
Uh-huh.
$173,000, I believe,
Uh-huh.
um, a year. And then, there's, incentives like if
Sure.
you're, Senate pro tem or,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
whatever positional incentives. But every congressperson makes the same amount.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't matter how long they've been in there as
Uh-huh.
base pay. Their insurance is federal insurance.
Huh.
It's the same insurance as a federal worker gets,
Huh.
and they do not keep that insurance for life. Not anymore.
Uh-huh.
when they retire, they're not paid for life.
Mhm.
It's federal retirement. Same retirement that I got because I worked for the federal government.
Mhm.
Not DOD, but when I
Yeah.
actually worked for federal
Sure.
government. Which is a decent, I mean, FedVIP isn't that bad.
Mhm.
But they're not paid for life anymore. And a lot of people don't understand that. They
Mhm.
think they get insurance for the rest of their lives. They get,
Mhm.
paid for the rest of their lives. And I believe that we as a society have forgotten what the House of Representatives is supposed to be.
Well, ultimately, we're civil servants, right?
Yes. And that's why the insurance and retirement line up to a civil servant retirement and insurance.
Mhm.
And I mean, how it's been so recently and for quite a while
Mhm.
is people who run for Congress, they're looking as a pay cut to run for Congress
Mhm.
or to be a representative. I would love to make that type of money. That's life-changing money right
Yep.
there.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're used to not breaking into the 6 digits ever,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, there's a couple of years that, as a family, we
Mhm.
broke into the double digit or not
Mhm.
double, 6 figure. But
Well, I'll tell you what, I got a challenge for you because I've been thinking about this. Because you know me, I'm always trying to find ways that I can help my community. And what I have never really been able to wrap my mind around is if these people are making this kind of money, right? Why can't they give back some?
uh-huh,
So I will make you a pledge right now. And I'm curious if any of the other candidates would follow me on this in the 8th. I will pledge 30% of my income whenever I get into office the entire time. And I'm going to invest that money back into the 8th because there are so many people that are struggling right now. Like, there's no reason in the world why we can't be offering little kids at least breakfast and lunch at school. How can they study if they can't think because they're hungry? And if we really care about our children, because obviously we're busy trying to force everybody to have them, right? Then those kids should have free health care and they should have free food because they're little kids. And if that's supposed to be our future, we're supposed to take care of those kids. And therefore, we're supposed to take care of their mamas. Because if you're not taking care of their mothers who are predominantly taking care of them, you are doing your future generations a disservice.
uh-huh,
So I'm just curious if anybody else would do that because I've often been thinking to myself, I'm also in that realm, right? I've never made that kind of money. Hell, I'm living in a trailer right now and I'm okay with it. I've actually thought about that a lot. Like, I don't need a new car. I don't need a new house. I just want people to be okay. Like,
uh-huh,
I didn't do this for the money. I did it for the principle because I want my kids to be okay. I want all the other kids to be okay. And all these grown-ups trying to play grown-ups in the room, we have seen this long laundry list of depravity that I think is just turning Hoosiers' stomachs. And that's another thing. Where are all these either potential candidates or people currently sitting in office? Why are they so quiet? They don't have anything to say? You really don't have an opinion about what's going on right now? You're just going
uh-huh.
to sit on your hands because you've been so busy bending over grabbing your ankles forever that apparently you're used to it. So that just shows me you don't give a damn about your constituents.
Uh-huh.
Something else that I find is curious. They're not in any rush to pick up the phone. I have called, I have emailed, I've had conversations in person. These people act like they're above us when they're supposed to represent us. So that's part of my campaign too. It's like, I want you to call me. I want to hear from you because I'm your representative. You're sending me to speak for you. So therefore, I want to hear from everybody. I want to hear from the moms on WIC. I want to hear from the families living off a SNAP. I want to hear from all the union workers. I want to hear from the steel industry. I want to hear from, people working down by the river, medical staff. I want to hear from the people coming out of prison. I mean, there's just no reason in the world why people are having to suffer the way that they are.
Mm-hmm. The Crane region,
Mm,
talking about how people suffer,
yeah.
um, because, think about it, defense spending
Yeah.
is taking a lot of money away. So the Crane region plays a major role in defense and technology.
Right.
How would you protect and expand those jobs while diversifying the economy? Because there's not much around Crane.
Yeah. And I was just looking at some stats here. If you don't mind, I'll just share some of those with you.
Go right
The
ahead.
uh, the poverty rate is 33.46%. So those people are living below the federal poverty line. They're suffering with education levels. 5.58% hold a college degree. They're having limited infrastructure problems. Um, Basically, the disparity between rich and poor, that's a perfect example of that. Maybe if you are one of the higher ups in Crane and you've got a financial interest to make things better, you're going to be very motivated to make it better for you. But Crane as an institution should really be trying to make things better for that whole area, because I don't care what business you're in, you should be in the business of helping your people. So if you're going to pull people as employees from that area, you should be committed to making that area better. You should be committed to investing in their healthcare, in their infrastructure, and all of that. I understand that they're in the business of making weapons. Everybody has a different opinion on that. I will say, I think, a lot of Hoosiers are anti-war. They're not a fan. They're following what's going on really closely. And we've got a lot of veterans, a ton of veterans. I can't tell you how many people I've run into that are veterans that are telling their children, don't join up. It's not the time, because they're anticipating going to war with Iran. Like, we've already been in Venezuela. We're having conversations about Greenland and stuff like that. I think there's a way that we can have responsible conversations about continuing service, keeping it low cost, keeping it safe. But you absolutely must invest in the rural life there, because if you're not investing, I just don't see how that industry can expand in a positive way for your employees.
And talking about rural,
Yeah,
agriculture remains central to counties across the district.
right.
What policies do you support to protect family farms from consolidation from big agribusiness?
Well, I don't know if you were you following that story about that older farmer who put his land in a land trust?
Yes.
I think most farmers are going to have to do that. Like I said before, we've got 63% farmland, and there are plenty of greedy vultures after it. For the people that will have the argument that, oh yeah, the solar and the wind farms are good and they're investing in their community and all these sorts of things. And we can hear arguments all over the place on that. But ultimately, what I've seen firsthand, because we just have a new solar farm in our community that's literally across the highway from my parents' farm. Initially, they told people in the area, oh no, it's great. It'll be fine. Animals will be able to graze around there. Wildlife will be able to graze. Well, then they put it up. They put a big fence around it. There's no wildlife going in there. They actually, I didn't hear this from his mouth, but I heard from the community members that one of these farmers that agreed to this, he tried to go on his land one day and they kicked him off. And they said, no, that's not your land anymore. This is our land for the next 40 years. So I think that we should be having a conversation about renewable energies, right? We all know we can't continue to just pump things out of the ground. It's just not possible. So we have to have alternate ways to get energy, but we also have to have those conversations about how are we going to keep some of that energy in these local communities, right? What is the economic and ecological impact of these? Realistically, people just want you to talk to them and they just don't want you to lie. Just
Uh-huh.
speak the truth. And all of these farmers want to know, right? If this is good for our community, why isn't it good for Indianapolis? Why isn't it good for Evansville? Why is it okay to put miles and miles and miles of solar farms here, yet you won't have the conversation about putting them on the roofs of all of these buildings? And, I always go back to what my grandpa used to say. Once you do something with the land like that, it doesn't just go back. You have to protect the land. You have to nurture the land. And I actually think it's an asset that we have 63% farmland in this area. Like, what I would love to see is the federal government and the state governments investing in farmers. Like, don't allow these large corporations to come in and take everything. Indiana used to be a very agrarian society. My family's been here for at least 200 years, farming for at least 200 years. I've heard all of it. I've heard from my grandpa how They used to have like 30 seed companies, 30 fertilizer companies, and then they monopolized. And then all the prices went up, right? Supply and demand. Then you have people like Bill Gates going around buying up all the farmland, right? You have, I think, two or three people that are essentially monopolizing the chicken industry.
Uh-huh.
You have just a couple people monopolizing the beef industry. You have to think of farming as an art form, right? You have to support these people. Think of them as your artisans, right? And I personally believe states like Indiana, if you don't invest in these farmers, then you want them to fail, right? And if you want them to fail, at the end of the day, you're losing your food independence. Your people, Hoosiers, are losing their food independence. And that certainly does not benefit Hoosiers, does it?
Yeah, no kidding. I know I was going to say something. I mean, it is ridiculous that we are having to talk about this because the backbone of this country has always been our farmers, our ranchers.
Mhm.
I mean, are we going to ever get back to an agrarian society like we were, hell, 130 years ago? No, I doubt it.
Mm-mm.
But we still need to be able to be a self-sustaining country.
We need to at least give people the option, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
if let's say, for example, because what I think would be, I have some thoughts for things we could do in Indiana to really help out the youngsters and just help people be proud of where they're from again. There's no reason why we can't just go straight down the median and some of these highways that are very straight, like 41, that goes all the way up and down the state. Why can't we put high speed rail in there? That would create a lot of jobs and a lot of skills for a lot of these young people that
Uh-huh.
would then be transferable, but they also could work here. They would be providing infrastructure here. Some of the roads and the bridges that we have, they're crumbling. You're always having to fix potholes and stuff like that. Um, We've got a lot of very interesting sites and parks here. There's no reason why we shouldn't have high speed rail that would connect Chicago to Evansville, for example, that they could just hop off and go to Turkey Run State Park or something like that. Like, I think we should be investing money in the beauty and the nature that we have here. And we should become a tourism spot. Like, there is a ton of natural beauty in Indiana. You have, um, there's a buffalo preserve that's in, let me think, north of Kentland, Morocco, I think. But there's a lot of interesting things just up and down 41. Not to say that we don't have interesting things all over the state, right? But this is just an example. If we could just do that, if we could just start with one high-speed rail. That would give a lot of people interest in Indiana as well. We can make more than weapons. Like, there's so much here, I think, that people aren't looking at. And I think it's because they're not from here. Or
Mm.
maybe they were originally from here and then they left. But the people that are deeply invested in the Hoosier way of life, whether it's, hey, I think my nephew, for example, I think he really wants to be a farmer. I think he's really interested in that. And yet my dad is trying to figure out how can that be possible for him? Because my dad and my grandpa, they always had two jobs. They worked in the steel industry and they farmed. So any farm in Indiana that's, say, like 100 acres or so, they're considered hobby farms. Once you get into the thousands of acres, maybe you can live off of that. But why can't a farmer farming in a 100-acre plot, like, why can't a family survive off of that? Like, we've just created this predatory system for farmers and for the rural community in Indiana, which there are a ton of people that are either from rural areas and then move to the city, but maybe might like to go back, or they're staying and they're trying to rough it out because they're hoping things will get better. And we have to give them those options. But part of that starts too with them investing in our communities, right? Like, that's why I use cash. Like, I'm trying to invest in my community because I want to make sure that some of these local businesses can stay open. I mean, obviously, like, everybody has to participate in this, but these businesses certainly should. They're part of the reason why all of these small businesses have closed. They're part of the reason why you essentially have ghost towns in these tiny little regions. And the only people that are there are retired because there's nothing there for the youngsters. They can't stay. And if they do stay, they're commuting an hour at least to Indianapolis to work. So that's at least 2 hours round trip every single day because they're trying to just stay in the community where they want to stay in. So the more you keep jacking up those gas prices and stuff, how can people possibly stay in the rural areas? And for me, all roads lead to greed here, right? Because that's ultimately what these people want. They want everybody to leave the rural areas. They want to price these farmers and these rural people out so they can just steal their land from them, essentially, because they would love to extract resources and put more money in their pocket. But that doesn't benefit Hoosiers.
I think most people don't realize about what you were talking about, the beauty of this state. How many people know that we had the largest swamp here in Indiana? It was actually up near where you live. And I mean, the Taze Aquifer is what fed it. And people drained it just so there could be farmland. They eventually brought some of the swamp back, but it's nowhere close to how big it was. There's still some of the mangroves are still up near Kentland and that area. But, there's no swamp up there anymore. The sandhill cranes are finally making their comeback around. And
thank goodness some people thought whenever there was all that expansion up Chicago way, right? Some people had the thought, hey, let's preserve these dunes because people may want to see that. Thank God they had the foresight to do stuff like that, or we would have all of that industry just right there on the waterfront. Because let's face it, anybody that's talking about industry rarely is talking about any sort of, preservation at all because they're just interested in profit. But I think that most Hoosiers actually really do care about conservation. And this crosses lines, right? So this is a nonpartisan thing. It doesn't matter whether you're a farmer or a hunter or a fisherman, or maybe you're on the other side and you're very progressive. All of these people care about these things. These are part of Hoosier values. We all know we were raised that way. You're not supposed to take it all. You're supposed to share. Like, I really think Hoosiers are a cup of sugar sort of people. Like, at least my generation, we grew up that way. Like, you don't leave your neighbor hanging. You don't let them starve. You don't want to poison their water. And so that's why I think we don't have legislators, at least in Indiana, that actively reflect Hoosier ideals and hopes for the future.
I could not agree more on that.
I think we all agree on that. It doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat or progressive, socialist, whatever you call yourself. We all care about that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, tomorrow, on the 27th, February 27th, is a release from Tom Arthur, who's a Republican running for State House.
Okay.
And he's in your area. It's Brazil, Clay City, Spencer area. And he talks about a lot about solar farms. And he's in the same thinking that, we are. Why can't sides of the buildings have them? Why can't you use it as coverings for like parking garages or parking lots? Just have them on top of the cars. And I mean, it makes sense. You almost don't want to say someone from a different political ideology makes sense. But you know what? When something makes sense, it makes sense. It crosses party lines.
I'll go farther here because you know a decent amount about me. Like, my area is deep red. And the only reason why I think people tolerate me being as outspoken as I am is because they know that I care. And they know I care about stuff like this. And I guarantee you, all these farmers, especially many of these farmers around here that have known my family for generations, I think they could confidently say, that Zeigler family is never gonna ever give up on these people. Like, and I'm really proud of that. I think I don't agree with a lot of what my parents think. My parents are Trumpers. Like, I struggle with that. We kind of have like a Benjamin Franklin situation going on in this area. I'm just like, look, and what's funny about that is my mom, I'd say more my mom than my dad, but we had to make an agreement to not have political conversations, to have a relationship. And what's funny about that is what opened up the door to having political conversations again were the Epstein files.
Uh-huh.
And that's something else Hoosiers care about. And I personally believe heads are going to roll for all of these legislators that have sat on their hands for so long, because those are also Hoosier values. We don't hurt kids here. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that is public opinion. Like, most people in Indiana, irregardless of political party, they know down deep that we need to protect these children. And I think it doesn't take much to read the room to say it's not going to go down the way that people think. And, that's a large reason why I hopped in the race. I mean, let's face it. I've got 3 little kids. I know the numbers on what happens to disabled people, but especially people with autism and are on in the neurodiverse community. I mean, it's devastating. Like, all of the abuse that can happen. And then now we're talking about reinstitutionalization. That affects my family.
Uh-huh.
And I can see the eugenics path based upon the past, based upon things that we did here. And all of this stuff that is coming out in these Epstein files, for example, all of it circles back to, what kind of person are you? What is your belief system? Who do you represent? Who do you work for? And I think Hoosiers are really, really tired of all of these people that they put in those places saying nothing, because that violates Hoosier ideals. For nothing else, right? We can disagree all day long, but if you put a bunch of Hoosiers in the room, they will hold your ass accountable. Like, toot sweet.
A little bit ago, you were talking about how roads, infrastructure, how we could put a high-speed rail down US 41 or
Mhm.
hell, across 70, down 65.
Mhm.
Um, it drives economic growth in your region. But
Mhm.
what investment comes first?
This is where it comes back to us asking ourselves, what do we want, right? And yes, everybody wants lower taxes. This is true. This is across the board. People are struggling. However, if you propose to them something and say, listen, what would you guys think about this? This is how much it's going to cost. This is how much return we could get. These are how many jobs we could create and keep. This is, what it would look like from an ecological standpoint if we maybe gave some tax credits to people that are currently driving that would probably take the high-speed rail to work. This is what those credits would look like for tourism. I mean, I'm going to go into the weed conversation here too, because when you're talking about money, there's plenty of farm ground around here, and there are plenty of people my age that are like, Illinois seems like they're doing pretty well. Hell, my brother has been talking to my dad about it forever, because my brother works at a dispensary, literally across the state line. Like, we're about 10 minutes from Danville, Illinois, where I'm from. And people are logical, right? Like, people are logical about these things. You can sit down with Hoosiers and say, look, this is what this will look like. This is how much money it will cost. Is this something that you want to invest in? And I think everything bounces back to greed, right? Because Hoosiers are very community oriented. And I think we are all collectively tired of seeing people come in from out of state, try and either steal resources or, exploit areas. Maybe they come, maybe they stay. Maybe they just come in and they extract and they leave. I think people are tired of that. And people want to invest in their communities, right? So I think we should, just be truthful, right? Come up with a number, like an actual number for these different projects. Be transparent with voters, and then ask them what they want. And you know what? I will always stand for what my constituents want. If they say, hey, you know what? Like, that high-speed rail sounds like a pretty good idea. How much is it going to cost all of us? And then they say yes, I'll be like, great, let's do it. I will push for it. Let's find a way to do it. If they say no, I'll be like, all right, what do you want to do then? Do you want to fix the roads? This is how much that's going to cost too. So I think Hoosiers are very rational people. And if you just start by telling them the truth with any of the things, but especially the infrastructure, then they will take all of that data. They'll go home, they'll have a conversation about it, at their dining room table, probably pull in all of the older family members, and then they'll make a cumulative decision and say, right, we think it's worth investing in this for the future, because I think that's what Hoosiers care about too, right? They care about the future. You can talk to any farmer around here, unless they're really selfish, which, we all have them in our groups, right? But by and large, these farmers are trying to find ways to preserve their farm. Even if maybe 10 years ago they're like, oh, that's a horrible idea. I would never do that. Just circle back and have another conversation with them about it and be like, here's the data. Here's what we've got. Do you still feel that way? Is there another alternative? I mean, just stop lying to people.
I think a lot of this has to do with education, with how we are having issues with retaining our students. Like Terre Haute, Vigo County has per capita the most post-secondary programs in the entire state. How do we create career pathways that keep them from going to Chicago or Lexington or Columbus, Ohio? How do we keep them here in the Hoosier heartland?
Well, I think this is, besides the fact that I'm neurodiverse and I see the world in a different way, which is helpful, I've also spent a significant amount of time abroad. There's a reason why Americans like to go to cities like Paris and Berlin and Oslo and Lisbon. Like, these are cities that have invested in their infrastructure and their social programs. People don't have to work themselves to death. There's a reason why people like to go to Chicago, right? Like, you go for the food, the culture, the music. So you certainly also should invest in those programs in Indiana, because you have talented people here. I would love to see Indiana do what Ireland did. Like, give a certain amount of money, to the artists. Do you want more musicians? Do you think that's valuable? Well, it might not be valuable in 2 years, but it might be valuable in 30. Like, we have to start investing in things, now for 20, 30 years out. And that's why I say everything bounces back to, what do you want? What do you want this place to look like? Do you think that it would drive tourism if you start giving incentives for artists to maybe start their own business? Wouldn't it be cool if you had a ton of places around Indiana that were like outdoor Parisian bistros? I mean, that's the sort of stuff that people like to do. Whenever they leave the States, pick a city. It doesn't matter. The one thing that people like about Europe in general is that it's relaxing. It's a slower pace of life. Things are reasonably priced. Everybody can afford it, right? There's something for everyone. So it doesn't matter how poor you are over there. You can still go to a cafe and have a basic coffee and maybe a croissant and sit and people watch for a while. And you don't have to worry about running to 2 or 3 different jobs just to pay your rent, just to pay your mortgage. And that's what I mean about asking people what they want. Like, what kind of future do you want? If we just keep letting these rich people just run away with it, what does that future look like for your child? Maybe you are rich. I'm not saying take all the money from rich people, but what I am saying is, do you like living in Indiana? Do you think that it's worth it to keep your business here and invest in Indiana? Wouldn't you like to see those type of things in Indiana? Would it be worth it to you to maybe be taxed 2 or 3 extra percent to create that sort of environment for everyone? Because I can tell you, there's a reason why these other countries and these big cities function the way that they do. Did you know that Paris has a minister of water? It's so important to have clean drinking water for everyone in Paris. They have an app that you can find all of the public fountains around Paris. Everybody has clean water because the French people and the French government have decided that's a human right. We don't care if you're a homeless person. We want to make sure that you have clean water to drink.
What, you mean they're not throwing the homeless people in jail?
I mean, look, every country has its problems, right? I'm not here to say, oh, hey, everything's great in France, everything's great in Ireland or whatever. But I'm saying we can use these other countries as a template. And why aren't we sending our legislators and our educators to places like this? If we want our education system to be better, right? Why aren't we sending people to Finland? Why aren't we sending our educators to Finland to ask these people, hey, how do you do that? Could we replicate that here? If you want clean water, why aren't we sending our legislators to France and saying, hey, could we watch how you do that to see if it's possible in Indiana?
Which
Because,
it
we would like
fully
that.
is. I mean, we just have to be willing to put in the time and the effort into it.
But I mean, if they're going to tax us to death, right? If
Yeah.
you're going to, what really pisses me off, these people are getting budgets to get new furniture in their offices when people in their districts can't feed their children. So maybe we can cut some of that stuff, but maybe then we could take some of that money and send them somewhere like that and be like, right, we're going to take all of the money because you don't need a new couch every year because your constituents can't afford it, so neither should you. Like, you need to tighten your belt too. But instead, we're going to take you on an educational trip. And, maybe you're on the Ag Division. Maybe they're doing something really interesting in Portugal, which they are. They have groves that are just lined along the road where people can just access. They can just access the fruit and stuff for free. Maybe you're on the Ag Division. Maybe you're going to go to Portugal for 2 weeks and you're going to figure this out. You're going to talk to experts and you're going to see what you can bring back to Indiana to improve the lives of Hoosiers. Stuff like that would be a good investment. And stuff like that people would be willing to pay for.
So your district has always been known as the Bloody Eighth because politics have been really interesting in that district. It's trended Republican for a little bit. How would you represent constituents who may not share your party affiliation?
Well, you know what I think? I'm a fighter and I fight for everyone. And I'm definitely one of those people that I'm a person of the people. I want you to call me. I'll have a coffee with anybody. I'll have a chat with you. We can talk about things. Certainly, if you have data, right, present it to me because that's how people make a good decision. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't care if you live in Covington. I don't care if you're from a very small rural area, or I don't care if you're, downtown Evansville. I care about all Hoosiers in this district. I mean, I care about all Hoosiers anyway, but I think I have a different dedication than some other people. My family's been here for multiple generations. I think there's something baked in, There's something baked in to my DNA about wanting to make sure that people are okay. And I just don't feel good about it. I'm not one of those people that can turn my back on people. So it's not going to matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian or whatever. I want you to call me. You're putting me there to speak for you. So certainly if you don't agree with something, which, I'll go farther than that. I hope I have enough time if there's a bill that comes up, right, that I can kind of get the consensus of my constituents, that we can chat about it and that they can tell me, hey, we like this, we don't like that, because then I truly am representing them, right? I'm like a conduit for the people. That's the whole reason why I'm doing this. I legitimately want things to be better because I want my kids to have the opportunity to be here, right? When they're as old as your daughter, right? If they decide they want to move away, okay, fine. But I just want to make sure that it's safe for them to always come back to. I want to make sure that this family farm stays that way for as long as the family wants it. I want to make sure that, all the parks and all the conservation and everything that's going on, that these people can continue to do what they need to do. We don't need to pump all of the resources out of this place. We can all embrace these things. We can all live peacefully. We don't have to agree about everything. Hoosiers don't agree about anything.
Yeah, no
It
kidding.
depends on what sports team you represent too, right? Up in this region, maybe you're an IU fan, maybe you're a Purdue fan. But these same people will then also go out and have a hamburger together.
Oh,
They
yeah.
don't hate each other.
Most of the time.
Yeah,
Depends where the bucket is.
Right. But you see what I'm saying? That's why I think it's so important to invest in candidates that are actually Hoosiers, right? There's a draw there. There's a draw to make sure that these places are okay and that these people are okay. Because these type of people that are entering these races right now, that's their reasoning. It's a principle thing. They're not doing it for the money. And I can tell you for damn sure, I'm not doing it for the money. I just want to make sure that people are okay.
So you might even say you have genetic Hoosier hospitality.
I would say I'm an equal opportunity offender, right? Like, I love everybody, and I
And
will
see,
equally.
that is a Hoosier
It
in a
is.
nutshell right there.
It is. I will
Is
equally hold your feet to the fire. I will equally hold you accountable. If you are full of shit, I will tell you so.
Mhm.
But I also want that for myself. I'm not going to fight with somebody if they're like, right, I don't like this. I don't like XYZ about what you said. And I'll be like, right, let's go talk about it. Because I can guarantee you by the end of that conversation, one thing that I learned from my grandpa that has stuck with me forever is everyone has something to teach you.
Mhm.
Everybody has some level of education. I never walk into a room and think that I know it all. I'm always expecting people to be in that room that can teach me, and I want to be taught. I'm a lifelong learner. It's like I often say, you need to have active representation in rooms. And because I've been a disability advocate for as long as I have, I can see how if you have to fight that hard for things, then you're an automatic advocate for everybody
Mhm.
because you know how hard it is. And you know how, all these little things that are happening, you know how easy it is for someone to be disabled. I think there's I can't remember the exact number, but we've got at least 1 million disabled Hoosiers. So then that's a conversation to be had. We need to include these people.
That's 1/7
Yeah.
of our population.
Yeah.
And it's not always visible either.
Right. Right.
I mean, no one would look at, either of us and be, well, they look perfectly normal. First of all, the term normal scares the hell out of me.
Mhm.
And second, disabilities aren't visible, not all of them.
Mhm.
And no, I don't believe in somebody that is disabled. They're differently abled.
Yeah.
Because having, being neurodivergent,
Mhm.
that's a superpower.
Mhm.
We can hold multiple things inside our head at once
Mhm. Mhm.
and do multiple things. It's also a kryptonite where, there's times that our entire body just withdraws into itself
Mhm.
and you're in bed for like 2 days
Mhm.
because you can't people.
Mhm.
So I think people need to start to understand that we're not different.
Yeah.
I mean, we all want the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's part of my charge too, right? It really bothered me when Governor Braun brought RFK here because
Mhm.
I know Indiana's history with eugenics, and for whatever reason,
Oh yeah.
we're always like running for it. It's like, hey, there's something really extreme. Let's do that. I don't
If
know
there
what it
was
is about.
only a sign at the Capitol building downtown Indy that talked about us with eugenics. Wait,
There
there
is a
is.
sign. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, oh
But
wait, there is.
But this is why history is important, right? We're not expecting everybody to know everything. This is why you have experts from multiple levels, but then ask them, right? Like, this is where it's important for our legislatures, right? And I guess this is why I think it's super important federally as well, because I don't remember ever seeing an autism, like someone living with autism being represented in Congress. And I think that's very important right now. I think it's very valuable because now that we're starting to have conversations about reinstitutionalization, eugenics, um, we're giving people grief about vaccines and whether it caused autism, whether it didn't, all these things. Now is the time for autistic voices to be present in those places. And this is why I step forward because I'm afraid for my children. I'm not afraid for myself, right? I've lived a pretty decent life, I made it to adulthood. But now I need to make sure that my kids are okay. And I'll be damned, you're not putting my kids or any other kids in any sort of institution. There's a reason why they closed the institutions in Indiana in 1997. And for those that aren't aware, they should go and research it. We had institutions then. The reason they closed is because one of the staff reported abuse to the Indiana State Police, and then they put a hidden camera on her, and she went back into that place, and then she got actual footage of these people being very mistreated. And then we found out as a state, oh, it's actually cheaper to close the institutions and put the power in the hands of the families. So
Mhm.
now, Indiana, we're going backward again because apparently we need to learn our lesson again. It wasn't It wasn't so long ago. I mean, I graduated high school in 2001, so I was grown enough to remember this, and people were shocked and horrified. And yet now our state is cutting funding for autism resources. We're putting caps on services. Early intervention is best. We know this, but these autistic kids, like, they don't deserve it. Like, let's not make sure that they have the resources that they need to be independent adults when they get older, which is actually going to cost the state less. If we invest in them when they're young, it will cost them less. It doesn't matter, how extreme their autism is. I've got a son that uses an AAC device. He's plenty smart. He just doesn't really speak. We need to invest in these kids so that they can live by themselves. Then we need to provide acceptable accommodations. We also should be providing acceptable accommodations for everyone. We've got so many abandoned buildings around. It wouldn't take much to retrofit some of these buildings to house our homeless population. And instead, it's a better idea to either institutionalize them, throw them in prisons that the sheriffs are already saying, hey, we don't have the space, the money, whatever. This is going to cost taxpayers more. So if you plot all this on a line, it not only shows greed, but it shows cruelty. And cruelty is not in the DNA of Hoosiers. I know we've got a complicated history. I'm aware of that. I know the Klan history and all of that. It's bad. It's awful. We should have learned from it, right? We don't need to do this stuff to our people. And these are some of the reasons why I entered the race. Because I took a look at who was in the race, and I was like, no. I'm not convinced, right? And it's not just this race. It's multiple races where I'm like, right, who's stepping forward? Who's actually saying the things, right? Who's trying to be a protector of their constituents, a protector of their people? Who's trying to conserve? Who's trying to educate? And I'm just not seeing a lot of that. And I'm tired of it.
Oh, hi there. Do you live in Indiana? Are you watching this video? Come on in. I'm Blythe Potter. I'm running for Secretary of State. I'm a veteran, small business owner, a mom, and a lifelong Hoosier. I'm building a grassroots campaign focusing on talking to the people, not the establishment. So help me spread the message that Hoosiers deserve better from our elected officials. Oh, hey, before you go, introduce yourself in the comments and share this with a fellow Hoosier. Bye now.
Tabitha, we've talked about jobs, healthcare, agriculture, infrastructure, and the future of Southern Indiana. But now it's time for the part of the show where the answers get shorter and the choices get clearer.
Okay.
No speeches, no talking points, just instinct. This is hold 'em or fold 'em. I'll give you a statement. If you agree, you hold 'em. If you don't, you fold 'em. One sentence if you need it. Are you ready?
Yeah, go.
Let's deal the cards. Healthcare should be treated as a human right with movement toward universal public coverage.
Hold 'em.
Federal minimum wage should be raised and indexed to inflation.
Hold 'em.
Workers should have stronger federal protections to unionize without retaliation.
Hold 'em.
Candidates should refuse corporate PAC or questionable special interest money, even if it costs them politically.
Hold 'em.
Major federal investment in clean energy can create jobs in districts like yours.
Hold 'em.
Public education funding should take priority over expanding private voucher programs.
Hold 'em.
Stronger gun safety laws, including universal background checks, are necessary to protect communities.
Hold 'em.
Housing affordability requires expanded federal investment in workforce and public housing.
Hold 'em.
Mental health and addiction services deserve major new national investment.
Hold 'em.
Elected officials must be willing to challenge their own party when constituents' needs come first.
Hold 'em.
Tabitha, you've spent years elevating voices through staring down the storm. Families navigating autism, educators working inside strained systems, and advocates pushing for structural change. That kind of work requires patience, requires listening. It requires the willingness to sit with frustration and still look for hope. Now you're asking voters across the 8th, from Terre Haute to Evansville, from Jasper to Vincennes, from Lagodi to Brazil, to trust you with something larger, federal representation. This district includes defense workers near Crane, students in college towns, factory workers, farmers, and families navigating healthcare systems that don't always work the way they should.
Mhm.
Your advocacy has centered on systems, how they shape real lives. Congress is a system too. So the question voters will weigh is whether the skills of advocacy, storytelling, can translate into legislative power and tangible results. Whatever the outcome of this race, thank you for stepping forward and putting your ideas and your record before the people of Southern Indiana. And to everyone watching and listening in Indiana, across the U.S., and to our listeners following along from Europe, democracy is built on real conversations about the systems that shape our lives, about who they serve, and about who they leave behind. Because representation isn't about familiarity, it's about responsibility. So stay informed, ask questions, and as always, hold them accountable.